Hello, I'm Rowan, and I have been sitting on a video for the past week or so here. It's part 2 of the video, Why Am I Such a Girly Girl? And so the problem is that the video is as much or more about race relations in America and how they affected me than it is about this phase in my life and how it affected my views on gender. It's kind of hard to get away from that, so instead I'm going to talk about it here, and I'll end up touching on it in another video some when I get to that part 2 video. And so there I was doing some final edits. So I thought they were final edits. And then something that I said hit me really hard. You see, I had not really thought deeply about the fact that my parents would have never met except for the fact that there was a war in Vietnam. And, sure, these days people from all across the world can meet and fall in love. I heard a story the other day about a guy from America who spent a semester in Fiji, and when he was there, he was working as a surfing instructor to cover his expenses. And he met a girl from Russia who was on vacation and wanted to learn how to surf. And long and the short of it, he ended up married to her, and now he lives in Moscow. But that was fairly recently, in like the last 15 years. But, that's not likely to happen in 1965. People didn't get to travel so much. We didn't have the great big jumbo jets that we have now. Only certain professions traveled the world, and that was much more difficult. For instance, you could join the military. One of the jokes about the military is that enlisting allows you to travel the world and meet people and stuff. My dad quit college and enlisted in the military because of the war. He would not have been traveling in Southeast Asia for any other reason, and his ability to get there would have been severely limited. Now, my mother, she might have wanted to travel the world because she's an enigma. To this day, the only key I have to decipher her thinking is that she is stubborn, frugal, grateful, and likely to do the unexpected. That being traveling the world at a time when there really wasn't an easy way to do it. But, her opportunities in 1965 were even less than my dad's. So I'm sure that everyone has had the crossing thought at least once that their parents could have chosen to not get together, considered that they would not exist without this random occurrence in the past. Many people are the result of little oopsies, or have stories of how their parents met and how it involves some slim odds or some drama. It's another thing to realize, though, that you are 99% likely to not have been born, except for some world-changing, tragic war that led to the deaths of around 3 million people. On the other hand, it's just something that happened. People are born all the time because their parents met due to some tragedy. Some would say you can't control the past, live with it as a way of accepting things the way they are, or you are the result of 4 billion years of evolution. Act like it, in order to get you to move on and get a grip. To some degree, they're right. There are things that you are never in control of, and whatever happened that resulted in you being born is just a tiny blip in a 4 billion year process. In a way, I owe my life to this war. I have a debt to it but it's not one I created. I had no control over events that happened before I was born, but there were people here who thought that I should pay because I came from over there. To them, I was somehow complicit with the Viet Cong because I look like them. You know, it's... This issue is a huge part of what shaped my youth in America. Probably between the ages of 6 and 16, 18, graduation from high school. People treated me badly, were biased against me, and judged my actions after they added a pinch of their prejudice because I came from the same continent that their boogeyman lived on. They made people who look like me a scapegoat for the problems in their lives. They taught their children by the words and deeds that people like me deserve to be treated badly. This was a source of a lot of friction. I was taught to stand up for what I know is right. My very existence was enough to trigger them. I had no way to show them that they were wrong. So instead, I internalized how I was treated. I learned from them how to act, and I reflected it back at the people around me. Much of my youth was wasted because I spent it in a state of fear, repression, and anger. Fear of somehow being inappropriate, repression of who I really was, and anger that when I behaved like them, I got attacked for it. Kids are not supposed to be like this. They're supposed to start developing reasoning and social skills in the grade school years. I was not in a place where I could do that with the majority of the boys around me. I could only try with the other ostracized kids. And there were very few of them. And they were all socially crippled, just like me. It didn't occur to me as odd at the time. But kids I got along with didn't last long at my grade school. As an Army brat, I was used to moving every year or two before coming to America, so kids moving away seemed normal. It occurs to me now that kids were being moved to other schools. I have to wonder if the problem was with them or if this school was just a bad environment for kids who were different. By the time I started middle school, I had been trained to be antisocial, to read double meanings into anything people said, and to be very sensitive to hostile intentions. Boys were not trustworthy and girls were unapproachable. This is not how an 8th grader is supposed to think. I had also somehow passed my classes. I wonder how well I would have done in school if I had not been regularly attacked. In my later life, a woman who had been in grade school with me asked me why I had been such a bully. I looked at her. I told her I was not the bully. I had only treated the people the way they had been treating me. I was trying to fit in, and fitting in was apparently taking every opportunity to put people down, just like the other boys. She was shocked. She never saw that I was mistreated. She had a generally good childhood, and those same people never treated her badly. So how could it be that they had been the bullies? Her memories were full of good times with few bad things happening. People tend to block out bad things that happen to other people because those things don't happen in front of them. And if they've been told to stay away from the person, well, there's fewer times that they're around them to see what really happened. I pointed out to her that blonde-haired white girls don't get called chinks or nips. They don't get chased by angry mobs of boys on bicycles. They don't get attacked because someone's dad or uncle has PTSD and blames the gooks for everything wrong in their lives. They don't get punished every time they succeed in behaving like the people around them. I'm sure that girls had social issues of their own, and life wasn't perfect for her either. But I would have much preferred to be a white girl than a brown boy where I grew up. I told her that I was sorry if I'd come across like an asshole, or that if I'd mistreated her in any way back then. But that's what I had to do. That's what I'd been taught by the kids around me. As I grew older and got away from those people, I found out that the side of town I had lived in was kind of backward, insular, and set in ways that did not reflect most of the area. In fact, the other side of town was newer, and the people who lived there were mostly new to the area and commuted to other cities to work. My parents had chosen to live in the worst area in the wrong side of town because it seemed peaceful and rural. Neither one of them had grown up being different from the people around them, and they had no frame of reference for that, at least not in the beginning. In my neighborhood, there were almost no non-white families. There was one Filipino family, one Japanese family, one mixed-race Korean family, and my family. I never saw the kids from those families at my grade school, or middle school, or high school. I wonder why. Mark Twain said, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness." And many of our people need it sorely on those accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. As I grew older, I gained more control of my life. A driver's license in a car, an education that did not hide painful truths, and exposure to different people from different places slowly tore down the anger, self-loathing, and distrust that I had used to build the person that I was. It was difficult and painful more than a few times to admit that I was as wrong as the people around me. I hope I'm a better person for the changes I've made, though. I still carry emotional scars from that period of my life, and I try not to put them on others. I try not to blame people who resemble the bullies of my past, and I hate the person I became in my youth as much as the people who made me a reflection of them. I cannot forgive the people in my past because they, like the former me, only live in my memories. I choose to think that those versions of us are dead and have been replaced by better ones as we've learned and changed. I met one of my former bullies when I was taking classes at the local community college. He had been into the Civil War in grade school. His attitude towards me in the past alluded to how his Southern-born parents had taught him. Our eyes met, and I could see guilt, shame, and sorrow cross his face. We exchanged some standard pleasantries, and he went off to his class in the history building. I never saw him again, but that moment gave me hope. I understood I had gotten past the issues of my childhood. I had survived long enough that the world around me had changed. The existence of half-Asian people, the mixed-race marriages, they were no longer reminders of a war that happened 30-plus years ago. Well, 60-plus years now. But most of the people who had issues with me in the past learned better. And the others had moved on to 2 or 3 sets of other boogeymen in the meantime. Today, I can buy sushi, kimchi, and wontons at Costco. And there are redneck Asian comedians on TV. The world is a completely different place. I know there are still places in America that cling to beliefs that date back to the era of the Civil War, but those places are growing smaller. Okay, this video, it's not the why I'm such a girly boy girl, but there's a lot in it that shows you what happens to people when they're put into stress and when they have to adapt and don't ever really get to be who they are. I'm not going to say that this is some growth of me being abused for so long, because I think I was like that before this actually even started. But it did certainly repress that part of me, because I spent a long time trying to be the ultimate boy, because that's what I had to do to compete with the other boys, to show them I was just like them. Eventually, as I've grown older, it's come out, and a lot of my acting out, a lot of my issues probably had something to do with that too. But that's for another video. For now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I was probably not fun, but I hope it was educational and maybe mildly entertaining. And I do hope you walk away with something more than what you walked in with on it. And I do hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time it is, you're having a great time. And I hope again that I will see you sometime in the near future. So until then, I'll see you then. So it was a really long and painful path of acculturation, I guess. That's the word for someone from outside becoming like the people on the inside. And it involved a whole lot of hate and anger and a whole lot of wasted time. And I'm a better person for having gone through it, but I wish I hadn't had to do that. And a lot of that affected me deep down. You might have read some little bits, or you might have heard some little bits in there that kind of hinted that my psychology wasn't about being a regular boy. It was about being an aggressive animal, like a beta wolf that doesn't want to be the beta anymore. Someone who's fighting to get to the point where other people are. This was a classic issue of privilege and not privilege, and fighting to get to where you need to be considered a human. So, what I've said so far is about me trying to be treated like a regular human being, and not as some foreign boogeyman child, or some scapegoat, or some kind of punching bag. And unfortunately, that happened, and it had to be worked through, because, well, it just did. And it wasn't fun, it wasn't pleasant, it wasn't something I'd ever want myself to go through again, and I wouldn't want to put it on my worst enemy. Well, maybe my worst enemy, but I would hope that they came out at least okay. I don't know if I came out okay. So that wasn't a childhood. That was animal self-preservation. That was years of trying to not get broken. And unfortunately, I don't think I made it out in 100% the way that I would have liked to. And I ended up spending a long time trying to get rid of all those aggressive canine attributes. I'm going to stop for now.